All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Athletics Canada coaching webinar. My name is John LaFranco. I'm the manager of coaching education at Athletics Canada. Very excited to have David Brown with us today. So just give you the usual instructions before we begin. Everyone is muted. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. And we'll get to them probably at the end. David's going to do a little presentation, and then we'll have questions probably at the end. Vous pouvez demander des questions en français et je vais traduire. Je pense, David, tu parles français ou non? Un peu. Okay, bah, je vais traduire. It doesn't usually happen, but if need be, we can do that. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the coming days on the AC YouTube channel. And coaches who've entered their NCCP number and are NCCP certified will receive 1 point for their participation in the webinar. So with this is David Brown. David's a PhD student working under the supervision of Dr. Catherine Savison at the University of Toronto. He completed his BA in psychology at Brock and his master's in Brock as well in the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences. And his research interests involve investigating the role of body image in various contexts, focusing specifically on the impact of body image concerns on sport and exercise participation, psychophysiology, and health. And that is where we are right now, and talking about body image and coaches and stuff. So I'm going to let David take it over here. And thank you for joining us. Really excited to hear all about your work.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'll just share my screen, make sure everything's good to go. All good?
Yep. All good.
Perfect. So, hello everyone, and thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Athletics Canada. Thank you, John and Kyle, as well, for inviting me to give this talk. As John mentioned, my name's David. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto, and I'm going to be talking about my dissertation work, which has been an obsession of mine over the last 4 years or so. But just before I kind of dive in and talk about the body image program that we've developed, how we went about developing it, and some preliminary findings from our evaluation, I always like kind of starting these talks by asking a pretty simple question. And the question is always, is actually a question that I've been asked many times by coaches, which is why should I care about body image? And I know that this is a bit of a weird question for me to be starting a presentation about why you should care about body image. But I have this friend, and a couple of years ago, this friend, I was talking about my dissertation work, and my friend turned to me and just said, well, why should I care about body image? And for context, this is a friend who volunteers about 20 to 40 hours a week of his time as a high level baseball coach, and who was a very high level baseball player prior to that. And so I was knee deep in research at this time. So the answer to this question was extremely obvious to me. I knew why coaches should care about body image, but it was weird hearing this question from a coach. And so I turned to my friend and I just said, well, why don't you tell me why you think you should care about body image? And he said, I don't really know anything about body image, so I can't really answer that question. And then I said, okay, well, why don't you start by telling me why you want to coach, why you have been coaching and dedicating all this time to coaching in the first place? He said that for him, it kind of boiled down to two major things. The first one being athlete development, and I'm paraphrasing my friend, of course. My friend said that he cared about positively impacting his athletes' physical, mental, and social development within sports. He really wanted his athletes to get out of sports the things that he got. Um, and those things that he got out of sports was a healthy body, a really strong mind, and really great friendships that have lasted him across his entire athletic career and into his career as a coach and even outside of sports. The other thing that he mentioned, and my friend is extremely candid, he said he cares about winning a lot. He cared about winning when he was an athlete, and he cares about winning as a coach. He said that for him, he really loves having that experience of seeing his athletes compete to the best of their abilities and winning these high level matches on the world stage. And both of these are very valid reasons to coach, and they're valid reasons to care about body image because the research is extremely clear on this matter. Body image has the potential to positively or negatively impact athletes' physical, psychological, and social development, as well as their sports performance. So I briefly explained to him about how body image concerns significantly impact athletes' decisions to drop out of sport or continue within sports. It impacts athletes' mental health in terms of things like depressive symptoms or disordered eating and eating disorders. I said how body image concerns can act as a distraction for a lot of athletes, even during competition, which increase their risk of injury. And I explained some research about how positive body image allows athletes to enter into like the zone or a flow state during competition more than athletes who have a low negative and higher, low positive and higher negative body image. So I explained all these things, and he said, well, body image seems like a pretty unique and niche subject. Like, is it really worth my time to study about this issue? And so I took some time and I explained how prevalent body image issues are in sports and how a lot of the research is actually showing that there's not really as much of a discrepancy between the prevalence of body image concerns in the general public compared to athletes within newer research. And newer research is also showing how body image concerns are impacting all athletes, regardless of gender or age or sport type. I also talked about how coaches play an extremely powerful role within sports and how the things that they say and how they act have significant long-term consequences for their athletes. So if they're good things, then athletes may model that behavior or those things that are being said. And if it's bad things, then unfortunately, those things also stick with athletes. So even though this might be seemingly a niche subject, it's something that has a potential to impact all athletes. I finished our conversation by talking about an Olympic level athlete that I had just finished interviewing for a separate study. And this Olympic level athlete who dedicated their entire life to their sport said, and I quote, I will never put my kids in sports because of what I went through as an athlete. And that was really sad to hear that this athlete who, again, loved their sport, competed 20 or so years in their sport, would never allow their child to be in that environment because of what they went through in terms of body image and the relationships with their coach on that front. So that was really a powerful thing that helped motivate me in my dissertation work. And I ended that conversation with my friend by saying, I don't think the question is why should you care about body image? It's why shouldn't you care about body image, given how prevalent it is and how much it has a potential to negatively impact your athletes' development and their sport performance. And so this led me and really has motivated me. This conversation with my friend has motivated me in my dissertation work. And from this conversation, I never actually had considered that where coaches are kind of starting their learning journey on body image. And so, sorry for the brightness, but the first study, my dissertation work, looked to really figure that out, figure out what coaches knew about body image, where they were getting that information from, and ways that we can help to encourage their participation within these body image education programs and learning opportunities. From there, it's great. We know all those things, but now what do coaches want in terms of an actual body image program? What's the structure? What time? How much time do we have? Should this be in person or online live, like what we're doing right now, or should it be self-paced? And what are some and what are some teaching strategies that we can implement to really facilitate a positive experience and positive learning outcomes for coaches? And then the final study is a pilot of that program. We have the design, the structure, we have the topics that we want to be included. Now, if we present it to coaches, are they going to have a positive experience within sports? Are they going to learn something that they perceive as valuable? Are they going to obtain new skills or master existing skills? And are they going to, most importantly, are they going to implement what it is that we're teaching them in their actual coaching practice? And so, starting with study one, we'll just briefly kind of go over what it is that we did. So, again, these are the research questions that I just kind of mentioned. How do coaches describe body image and understand it in its relationship to sports? Where are they learning about body image? And then what can we do to really encourage them to further their learning on this topic? And for this study, we interviewed 17 coaches from across Canada representing different sports, different levels of competition, and we had one-on-one interviews or focus groups with them. And really what we found was that coaches were very much aware of the relationship between body image and sports, but when it came down to actually defining body image, they had a little bit of trouble, oftentimes resorting to it's how people look, at themselves, or it's how people it's matching your physical appearance with how you want to look in your head. And so for us, what this really meant was that coaches knew about the relationship between body image and sports, but they just lacked some terminology and some of the vocabulary to really describe what it is, not just for themselves, but for their athletes and potentially to other coaches as well, and parents. And so that was a major goal that we identified from this study. We also saw that none of the coaches had engaged in any type of body image education programming. Really, all their learning on the subject was through things like podcasts, YouTube videos, and sometimes some coaches indicated that they had paid for research papers on this topic, which is not an ideal situation for learning. And then lastly, when we asked about barriers to coaching, to engaging with these coach education programs on body image, coaches just indicated that they don't have a lot of time. They're really strapped for time because they're dedicating so much to coaching, engaging in other coach education programs to maintain their certification. Um, and then they have a job and a life and a family outside of all of this. So for us, time was a significant barrier that they identified. Cost was another one. Many coaches are volunteer coaches, and so keeping these programs affordable is a major concern for coaches and a major point for us, something that we really wanted to achieve. And then they also indicated that we need support from these national and provincial sport organizations in order to potentially provide professional development credits, which we do in our program. I'll get to that in a little bit. But also just to raise awareness because these organizations are oftentimes seen as authority figures within the fields of coach education. So we needed their support and their endorsement as well. If we were able to do all those things, then coaches would be more likely to engage in this type of learning. So from this project, what did we find out? We figured out what coaches know about body image, which is they know a lot about the relationship, but they need more vocabulary to describe it. Where they learn about body image, well, unfortunately, it's informal learning, and there's no formal education or coach development programs that existed for them at that time. And we learned about how we can encourage participation within the programs. What we didn't know, though, was how we should deliver the program, what time coaches are willing to commit to this type of learning, what teaching strategies we could implement to really enhance their experiences within the program and how much they learn. And then we also didn't know what specific body image topics they wanted. But we didn't know where to begin, which is the foundation level. So again, sorry for the brightness. So this led to the second study, which looked more at collecting that information. So for this, we surveyed close to 400 or so coaches from across Canada. The information that we got from them was that they wanted a body image program to be delivered online and to be delivered asynchronously or to be self-paced. They wanted the program to be at most that they could dedicate was 5 hours. And don't worry, the program that we did develop was not 5 hours. It's much, much shorter than that. And within the program, they wanted a lot of visual demonstrations and problem-based case scenarios. They wanted to see the information that they were getting actually in action and to kind of like understand a little bit how to go about engaging in these really complicated and sensitive situations. We gave them a list of 17 topics to kind of choose and rate, and all of the topics were rated really high. But some of the notable ones that stood out were how to establish a positive body image sport environments and how to create more positive relationships and approaches to food and nutrition. And so these topics and a lot of the topics that they rated higher than others were things that were more practical, things that you could apply immediately and more hands-on, less theoretical stuff, which wasn't surprising. So in terms of what we knew from this study, from study one, we figured out what coaches know about body image, where they want to learn, where they've been learning about body image, and how to encourage their participation in a program. And then from study two, we figured out what that program should look like. And eventually, what we came to was a body image program that is maybe I have it here. Yes, so the body image program that was developed was only 2 hours long. It's an online self-paced program. It's completely free for all coaches. It utilizes a lot of different teaching strategies to try to keep learners engaged, a lot of them being problem-based case scenarios. Coaches have the ability to read, listen, or watch. So there's summary videos that kind of summarize the entire module. There's an ability to just kind of listen to the text that's on the screen, or you can read it if that's something that you enjoy or would prefer. And then, like I mentioned, we offer 3 professional development credits for your participation in the entire study right now because we're engaging in a pilot study of the program. So these 3 credits are for the pre-survey, the program, and then the post-survey is where we get your NCCP information, and we upload that at the end of each month. So actually, I will be uploading that NCCP stuff tomorrow for the coaches who completed it in December and January. Um, Program itself has been condensed into 3 modules. The modules span those 17 topics, and they're really focused in on defining body image and its relationship and how it develops in athletes. Uh, Highlighting how it impacts athletes from a well-being standpoint as well as a sports performance standpoint. And then the final module is what can you do about it? It's practical takeaways for coaches. Um, Even though we have a program, we still don't know we have a program, sorry, that's aligned with coaches' preferences and that, starts from a very simple foundational level and goes to more practical hands-on stuff. Seemingly, coaches would like it, but we need to actually test whether or not this is going to be an effective program. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're testing to see if coaches have a positive reaction to the program. We're testing to see if they're learning anything and if they're acquiring new skills or, again, like I mentioned, mastering existing ones. And most importantly, if they're applying what we're teaching them within their coaching practice. So this is our study 3. And again, just bright. By the way, I should also mention that these are the titles of the research papers. So these are all going to be submitted for publication under these titles. And so if you're interested in looking up the actual publications, this is what the titles would be for those papers. Um, but this is generally what the program is going to look like. So from the opening page, you're going to see this little breakdown of each of the modules and kind of the mini lessons within each of them. This is kind of just a bit of a screenshot, excuse me. So you have the actual text here as well as some down here, and then you can click the audio button here if you don't really feel like reading it and you just want to listen to it. It's totally fine. We have that as a built-in option. We have case scenarios. So this is coach, and he's talking about his athlete, Jonathan, who's a 12-year-old boy who loves swimming. And these are all real situations that myself and the other researchers have engaged in across research and anecdotally as well. So they're all based in reality of real situations that have occurred and how individuals, coaches have responded and parents have responded to these situations. So there's an opportunity to, again, do these problem-based case scenarios, but there's other ones like a little drag and drop activities or matching definitions with terms kind of thing. In the final module, we have some downloadable content. So this one is on recognizing early signs of body image concerns in athletes. So this is something that coaches can download. They can keep in their coaching portfolio or and reference in the future if they want. So there's a couple more of these within this final module that again talks about more practical, hands-on, immediate takeaways, as well as long-term takeaways too, and long-term things that you can do as coaches. So initially, at the time of this presentation, we've collected information from 30 coaches who have completed the program. They've done the pre-survey, which consists of some knowledge assessment quiz, as well as some standardized measures on things like anti-fat attitudes and self-efficacy when it comes to addressing body image concerns. We want to see if there's any changes over time. And then we also had 16 coaches who completed follow-up interviews with me just to talk a little bit more in depth about the program, what we're doing well, what we should keep, and what we should be modifying and adjusting to have more positive outcomes for coaches and learners in the future. And then we do have some preliminary results as well. Overall, we've seen some pretty high satisfaction for the content within each of the modules and within the program as a whole. Coaches are indicating that the content is really understandable. It's not filled with a lot of jargon, and it's very useful and applicable for them. We also see very high ratings in terms of the relevancy of the content to that coach. And then we also ask coaches if they think that this topic and this program is important for other coaches to engage with and to learn about, to which they also indicated very favorably that yes, this was a program that they felt other coaches would benefit from. In terms of knowledge increases, we did see significant improvements in knowledge over time. And this is especially notable because the coaches who participated in the study and finished the study had very high levels of body image knowledge at the beginning, and we still saw significant increases in these very knowledgeable people from the beginning of the program to the end of the program. So that's really important for us because it implies that individuals who have less experience or less knowledge on body image are likely going to see even greater improvements compared to people who already knew a lot going into it. And then we also saw increases in coaches' self-efficacy in addressing body image concerns. So coaches are a lot more confident in actually having these conversations with athletes, having conversations with parents, having conversations with coaches about body image and related issues. And then finally, the most important one, and to me, it was kind of the most shocking result of the study, was that 100% of the coaches who completed the program indicated that they implemented this information within their coaching practice. And so that was very promising for us, even if in terms of what they've implemented, it ranges from really big things like introducing positive self-talk pertaining to your body image within their mental health training to really minor things, which is just having a conversation with other coaches about monitoring the language that you utilize within your sports settings with athletes, about modeling positive body image behaviors, just really minor things like this. But all of that was extremely important and very promising. So, in terms of the feedback, we know that the delivery, the duration of the program, which we say it takes 2 hours, but most coaches finish it in about an hour and a half. One coach actually finished it in 45 minutes, so that was really good. So we know that, yeah, the delivery, the online self-paced, the hour and a half program, long program, the teaching strategies that we implemented were all positive things. No one really identified any missing topics, but they did want a bit more of an emphasis on the role that social media plays in athletes' body image and the role that culture plays. Canada is a melting pot, and so we get a lot of individuals from various cultures, and body image is impacted by those cultures. And so they wanted just a little bit more of an understanding of how culture plays a role there, because what's appropriate for one culture might not be appropriate for another. And then they really liked the additional resources that we provided them. These are continued education courses for coaches, as well as resources for athletes to improve their body image as well. But as good as the program was, there's always areas for improvement, and I'm very much looking forward to ending the pilot study phase so I can implement all this amazing feedback that we got. And this feedback really pertains to just making sure that the program is very applicable and practical, that we're able to utilize to contextualize this information into problem-based case scenarios so coaches can really see what this looks like, what a positive kind of approach would be to tackling these issues with athletes versus a negative one, so that they don't have to practice up, those approaches in real life. They can see how it would play out in our program. They wanted more downloadable content for coaches. They found the content that we had extremely useful, and they really wanted more of that stuff that they can give parents, that they can give their assistant coaches, and that they can give their athletes. And then they felt as though athlete and coach testimony would also really help to just nail home some of the points that we're trying to make throughout the program. So that was me rambling for about 20 or so minutes on the program and everything like that. Just before we kind of get to some of the questions, I really just want to thank everyone for being here. I really want to thank the Coaching Association of Canada for all of their support on this set of projects, as well as for our partnership with them. Athletics Canada, of course, for inviting me here. The Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sports, and the National Eating Disorder Information Center for all of their support that they've given these series of projects and on this coach education program. Oh yeah, and also too, most importantly, all of the participants across all of the studies, the 400 or so coaches who have given their very precious time to provide this information, it's all been extremely useful, and just thank you all so much for that. Um,
Cool. Well, thank you for your great presentation. That's it's really cool to see, kind of how it all comes together. I'm gonna throw in the chat the link to the survey. So the link that I've put there, everyone, basically, if you click on that, then you get to do David's little sort of pre-questionnaire, and then you get the link to the actual uh, e-learning, and you can kind of go through it. But we wanna take advantage of the fact that you're here and ask some questions. That I mean, maybe some of these questions would be answered in the e-learning, but we can have a nice conversation about it and sort of share some knowledge with the coaches. So, it'll start this one as kind of like a kind of a bigger picture general question, and it's sort of like so how do we get to the point where we can kind of, talk about this with athletes and just, say like, hey, how's your body image doing? Like, get to that kind of level of comfort. Because obviously it's a pretty fraught thing, and it's, there's some shame involved, and there's uncertainty, and there's, people feel like they have to give a certain answer. So how do we, get this to a good place?
Yeah, I mean, building off of what you say, it is a bit of a sensitive topic. There's a lot of stigma that surrounds body image, and body image is mental health, and so athletes are always concerned about looking weak to their coaches or looking unprepared or not ready, especially in sports where they can have the potential to be like benched or something like that. Athletics is different than that, but they still don't want to be um, looked at in a negative light by their coach. And so it's tough to get at that very sensitive question. But through learning about what body image is, you do end up developing some techniques and tricks to ask about how their body image is without explicitly saying that. So just asking, are you feeling comfortable? Like, how are you sleeping? Like all of these things are impacted by their mental state and their mental health. So in our program, as well as the other program that exists, which is the Body Confident Coaching Program, you'll figure out and get some different ways in which you can kind of ask this question without
Mhm.
it being so loaded or, potentially seen as, yeah, as a threatening question for athletes.
Yeah. Yeah, like an accusation or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And again, athletes just don't want to be looked at as though they're weak. Their entire
Mhm.
career is about being strong and confident. And so
Mhm.
it's a very stigmatized topic as well.
Yeah. So what are some signs that coaches might see of athletes that might, indicate that there's a concern about body image?
So all of the signs that we can kind of talk about are mostly behavioral signs, and all of them have to be looked at within the context of that athlete. So saying something like, athletes who wear really baggy clothing, typically we see that in research as a means of covering your body up to try to hide it from evaluation. But your athlete might just like baggy clothing. I like baggy clothing. It doesn't mean I'm trying to hide my body
Yeah. Yeah.
or anything like that. I'm just trying to be comfortable. And it also,
Yeah.
might be the fashion,
Yeah.
what's in fashion. So always look at these things within the context of that athlete. Some of the things that we see are, again, clothing. We can see how they're conversing with other athletes. So that's a big thing that we talk about in the program is about monitoring some of these conversations as much as you
Mm.
can. And just being aware of social comparisons about discussing food and discussing weight in ways that are really unhealthy. Speaking of food, athletes who, don't eat in front of coaches is typically a bit of a negative sign, or who are, not eating from your perception, not eating well and not fueling their body well. They're just like
Mm.
refusing to eat. That's typically not a great sign. But again,
Mm.
within the context of that athlete, so if an athlete's not eating, their bread before a competition, maybe they're
Mm.
celiac, or maybe they're just not hungry. As long as athletes are like listening to their body, that's an important thing. Um, the another thing that coaches probably don't recognize immediately as an indicator of having negative body image or potentially having body image concerns is excessive training. a lot of times we look at an athlete who's willing to go that extra mile to run those, to do those additional drills at the end of practice or to double up on their training. We see that as a good thing. It's this athlete, the no pain, no gain type of mentality. They're going to push through and they're going to try to perform and get their body as ready as possible. But oftentimes that's an indication that there's potentially some body image concerns, and it's actually a form of disordered exercise, which can have really long-term consequences, obviously injury
Mm.
and things like that. So that's another very obvious kind of indicator that athletes have body image concerns potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard one because I think all the things you mentioned are things that, as you say, like could be just normal, fine. Like it's just
Yeah.
a thing, just an individual, like, like you said, like they don't eat bread because they're celiac, not because they're worried about carbs.
Yeah. Well, they
Things
have
like that.
dietary restrictions.
Yeah.
There's religious
Hmm.
dietary restrictions as well that you go to a
Hmm.
restaurant and eat as a
Hmm.
team, and they don't have anything that really fits
Hmm.
their diet. So
Yeah.
definitely, this depends on your relationship with that athlete
Yeah.
and having that close relationship where you kind of know what's normal behavior
Hmm.
for them, and then you start to see it drift in a way that could be potential problem, lead to a potential problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's always the baseline. Know your athlete, and then just gonna have a go from there. Um,
Mhm.
how early do body image concerns begin showing up in athletes? Like, is it a adolescent thing? Do you see it younger than that?
So when it comes to body image in general, the research shows that kids as young as 5 years old will started to learn some kind of that there's some value and some personal attributes that are associated with certain body types. So in the specific study that I'm thinking of, they gave kids these two dolls, one that was very thin and one that was very heavy, and they asked them to describe the dolls, and they just found that the kids had more negative attributes associated to the doll that was heavier compared to the doll that was lighter. And so this is all learned behaviors. And then in childhood, we see that they're modeling a lot of how adults around them are speaking and the
Mm-hmm.
behaviors of those adults. So if your dad's going on an all protein, all meat diet, then the kid will see that and think that that is appropriate for them potentially, which obviously as a kid, it's not appropriate. So that's where they start to model certain behaviors and start to look at certain language being used. And then you really start to see a big peak in body image concerns in adolescence once they kind of hit those teens where social media plays a huge role, where they're
Mm-hmm.
receiving a lot more pressure, societal pressure, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of meet these ideals. And maybe they're tends to kind of also coincide with more competitive athletics as well. Like at that age, they're starting to move away from the sports sampling phase and start to
Mm-hmm.
focus a little bit more in on what sport they want to quote unquote specialize in and focus in
Mm-hmm.
on. And so now there's this mixed signal from society that if you look the part, you'll be able to perform well. And that's
Mm-hmm.
obviously not the case, but we as adults can see that that messaging is incorrect. But when that's being bombarded to them on social media, it's a little bit harder. And then their bodies on top of that are changing, and that's difficult to navigate. So you see it very young, childhood mirroring behaviors, mirroring language, and then in adolescence you start to see a lot of body image concerns that tend to persist quite for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned social media. How does that impact? Like, and I guess a few things kind of lumped in with that, sort of things like, you know, uniforms and sponsorships and other sort of like social pressure things.
Yeah. So social media plays a huge role
Mhm.
in body image concerns and body image issues in children and adolescents. And we see it from a bunch of internal reports that Facebook and Meta come out with each year. I'm always like flabbergasted at just how almost purposeful it seems that, let's push
Mhm.
body image concerns and body image issues to individuals in order to promote engagement
Yeah.
and things like that. So social media plays a massive role. And I've gotten a lot of questions from coaches about how can I help my athletes navigate body image on social media. And that's very difficult because, unless really all you can do, all this coach was doing was they had a lot of their athletes following them, and they would just post things that were promoting positive body image, promoting body
Mhm.
attunement, body appreciation, things like that to try to, fill their For You page with some more positive things as opposed to all the negative stuff that we're constantly met with. And so that's
Mhm.
really difficult. And it becomes especially difficult at the professional level or semi-professional level where the athletes themselves become the social media. They see themselves in sponsorships for things like Nike or
Mhm.
for Under Armour, all these things. And it's like, how do you now navigate looking at the comment section of that post that you're the
Mhm.
subject of and seeing how
Mhm.
people interact with you? That's a whole level of body image research that has not yet been thoroughly explored, but I can imagine that is not a positive space and is very difficult. And I think that it's up to organizations to kind of moderate those comment sections a little bit to try to remove inappropriate language that's being used. But it is very sensitive. And you talked about, I think the last one that you talked about was uniforms.
Uniforms, yeah.
Uniforms are a major trigger, a body image, excuse me, body image trigger for a lot of athletes, especially when they're at this kind of sports sampling phase. A lot of athletes will end up just kind of leaving sports where they don't feel comfortable. So you
Mhm.
see a lot of people dropping out of sports like gymnastics because the leotards just don't fit well. Or
Mhm.
volleyball was a sport where, girls and women had to wear spandex shorts, and a lot of people just felt uncomfortable with that. Now,
Mhm.
thankfully, some of these sports are changing their rules surrounding uniforms, and I think that that's going to do nothing but positive things for the sports.
Mhm.
So I'm in favor of just creating more inclusive sport uniforms that are not, overly appearance focused. But yeah, those are massive triggers, and I know that there's issues surrounding, different weight appropriate uniforms and things like that. It costs a lot of money to do that, and it is something that we do also talk about within the program and different ways in which we can try to navigate that issue.
Mhm. So next question would be about the difference between males and females. I think it's fair to say society has a different levels of expectation and sort of different sort of views and things of males and females. But I'm sure that all are affected just in different ways. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so in terms of exactly to your point, like the development of body image is similar. There's different image ideals for girls and women versus boys and men. For girls and women, it's to be thin, and for boys and men, it's to be muscular. So there's still this pressure to achieve both those things, and what we're finding out too is that the amount of pressure that each person is kind of faced with isn't as significantly different as we maybe once thought. So, for example, a lot of the research is showing that body image concerns in boys and men pertaining to muscularity and things like in their appearance is much higher than we previously thought. And I think a lot of that surrounds us just asking better questions because their goals, as we mentioned, are different. And so asking, boys and men if they're concerned about their weight, a lot of them will say no,
Mhm.
or many of them will say, yeah, I want to increase my muscle. And
Mhm.
when you ask that question to girls and women in the past, the research has shown, yeah, I want to decrease my weight. And so we look at one and go, well, they're satisfied with their weight. And if anything, they want to gain weight. And that's a positive
Mhm.
thing. And
Mhm.
so how we've looked at it different in the past is different than how we look at it now. And we're seeing that there's still a very high prevalence of disordered eating and eating disorders in boys and men, especially in weight-dependent sports. Um,
Mhm.
but again, it just is different between the ideals that they're trying to strive towards.
Mhm.
And puberty also helps where puberty kind of moves, gives a boost of testosterone for boys and they can increase their muscularity and move them in a way that's more aligned with that ideal. Whereas
Mhm.
with girls and women, it moves them in a way that's less aligned. And so those issues
Mhm.
may also occur more drastically there, but they exist amongst everyone, and they're getting them from similar sources of parents, peers, teammates, media, coaches,
Mhm.
spectators play a massive role as well.
Mhm.
Um, so the sources of those body image concerns are similar. The development of it is similar. The ideals are just that they're striving towards or being
Yeah.
pressured to achieve are just slightly different.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, I think we have a little more of a handle on the kinds of things to say or not say, with girls. I feel like, and this is very anecdotal, obviously, but like with boys, and I coach boys, like boys hockey and stuff. I feel like we're still a little bit more free with like just kind of like casual body comments and stuff that you would never, think of saying to a female, but if it's a boy, you just kind of, you know. So what are the kinds of language that coaches should be, mindful of when working with young athletes? Just because I'm sure there are things that, people, it's like you don't know what you don't know, and you just say a thing and you just like you don't realize, but actually that could have an impact.
Mhm. I think from doing our program as well as the body confident coaching, you become a little bit more aware of how these messages can be interpreted by athletes of various different ages. And so that helps you to kind of realize that term or that expression that you used was actually really, really bad. And you're like, okay, well, I can monitor that now, and I can talk to my other coach, and we can monitor that together. Some of the things that seemingly wouldn't be an issue that we might not think it are an issue can be. So I had a football coach who mentioned that he was talking to a wide receiver, so the guy that
Mhm.
basically stands on the corner, runs out and catches the ball and runs and scores a touchdown, ideally. He
Mhm.
said something to the effect of him being very skinny, and that was a good thing. And the kid took it in a very negative light, and he was very
Mhm.
upset. And the coach had to have a talk with him afterwards to be like, I meant
Mhm.
this as a positive thing. And he's like, I'm a
Mhm.
linesman, so I'm a big fat guy. And,
Yeah.
I never thought that being called skinny would ever be a bad thing.
Mhm.
And so just being aware of, again, these body image ideals, kind of the
Mhm.
goals of, young people, the pressures that they face can help us monitor the language that we're using within the sport environment. And any type of language that could be misconstrued as appearance equals performance or weight equals performance
Mhm.
is not healthy,
Mhm.
and really negative.
Mhm.
And on that note, too, oftentimes coaches don't feel really comfortable talking about body image, so they try to avoid the issue. And that's
Mhm.
also not helpful because we
Mhm.
want to show that athletes, if they do have these issues, if they have these concerns, any mental health concern, that their coach is there to support them through this. And they might not be the person who's going to solve the issue because, you're not qualified to deal with
Yeah.
depressive symptoms or eating disorders or body image concerns, but you will be able to point them in the right direction to try to get the help that they need, and you'll be there to support
Mhm.
them along that journey of them getting that help. That's always going to be good. So yeah, the language is very hard, but again, just trying not to equate appearance with performance and weight with performance. Really
Mhm.
taking that out of your vocabulary is really important, and putting yourself in the athlete's shoes and seeing how a
Mhm.
seemingly positive message could be potentially misconstrued or taken
Mhm.
in a way that really negatively
Yeah.
is a good first step, I think, for coaches, and something every coach can do.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great advice. You anticipated my next question, which is, who should coaches be referring athletes to who need support in this area? Because as you say, sport coaches we are called upon to be a kind of like experts in a lot of areas and do a lot of different things, not specifically related to like technical coaching, but we do want coaches to not like feel the burden like they have to do that, but also understand their limitations and get the athletes to the right places. So can you talk a bit more about that, like the types of professionals that can help with these sorts of issues?
Yeah, I'm definitely very sympathetic to all of the pressures that coaches are expected and all the content and knowledge that coaches are expected to just know. And the
Mm,
goal of this program that we make very clear at the beginning is that we are not expecting you to become body image experts by the end of it, but we are just hoping
mm,
that you have some knowledge so that you can navigate these situations better and refer athletes out. So in terms of like if you're suspecting body image issues with an athlete, of course you have coaching staff that you're typically with that might have different levels of expertise than you that you can kind of have this conversation with. So ideally, if both of you have done body image training, then you can have this conversation to say like, oh, like I'm noticing this behavior. Like, do you think like that's a little abnormal? You can talk to parents is a big one. And then if there's a lot of warning signs and you talk to an athlete and you're express concerns about something like nutrition, referring them out to a registered dietitian is a big
mm,
thing because a lot of them will understand how to navigate these complicated conversations and to provide
Hmm.
recommendations for fueling the body for specific sports performance. Uh,
Hmm.
when it comes to mental health, social workers in those areas, body image and disordered eating and eating disorders are there. There's psychologists and then there's psychiatrists as well. But for that, you would need a referral, I believe, from your family physician. And that's also difficult because medical doctors don't really have any training
Hmm.
on body image. And oftentimes
Yeah.
within the medical world, there is like this idea that your weight significantly impacts your health
Hmm.
over and above many other indicators of health, which we're
Hmm.
finding more and more that not to be as
Hmm.
black and white, let's say, as it we thought it was in the
Hmm.
past. So I would say that, and what coaches have also said to me in these interviews is that they've reached out to registered dietitians in their neighborhood to just try to come in and give a talk
Hmm.
with their athletes, just a little 15-minute talk before one of the practices, or to give a talk to
Hmm.
the parents and
Hmm.
just to show them that the resource is there for them if that's something that they want, and that can help
Hmm.
establish more positive approaches to food.
Hmm.
Another one to yeah, so those would be my recommendations. Social workers, um, psychologists, psychiatrists, registered dietitians would be the people
Hmm.
that I would refer out to if
Hmm.
this is becoming an issue that is not something myself and the parent can manage.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned, medical doctors and weight and link with health. So a lot of coaches might feel like objectively they look at an athlete and they think, okay, like that athlete needs to lose weight for performance, or that athlete needs to gain weight for performance. How should a coach approach that? Like, is that just like it's not accurate and you just shouldn't say it, or is because there's some some sports, maybe not in track and field, but a little bit where like there is some link between weight and performance. How do you address that in a way that's not gonna you know cause a problem basically because you don't want to crush the athlete?
Yeah. Certain sports you have to talk about weight. If there's weight dependent sports, bobsled, you have
Mhm.
yourself weighing as well as your actual sled. In rowing, you have weight classes, obviously wrestling,
Mhm.
boxing, jiu-jitsu, stuff like that. There's weight classes. So you have to have those conversations. The issue again surrounds this idea of like equating weight with performance or performance
Mhm.
potential. Those things
Mhm.
aren't linearly connected.
Mhm.
There's very likely many other things that you should be focusing on as a coach that are within your area of expertise that
Mhm.
will help that athlete to achieve a better performance. And I had a participant in the study who said something that I'll paraphrase it, but it'll stick with me for a very long time, which is that these athletes that you see at the Olympics and the bodies that you see there, those bodies are a byproduct of doing all the right things in training. It's recovering from training, it's fueling your body for training and for competition, it's sleeping well, it's it's listening to your body, it's meditating, it's doing your physio, it's doing all of those things.
Yeah.
And it's not an actual goal of those athletes or of their coaches. It's just a
Mhm.
byproduct. And
Mhm.
so I don't think that it's a coach's responsibility, and I
Mhm.
don't think that it should be a coach's goal within the context of athletics to be commenting on an athlete's weight, because I don't
Mhm.
think that that's going to be significant predictor of performance. And I don't think
Mhm.
that losing a couple pounds is going to be the difference between making the podium and not. There's other things that as a coach,
Yeah.
as fantastic coaches, you should be able to focus on that are going to make a much more significant impact on performance.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
on that note, too, the thing that
Yeah.
might impact your athletes in a positive way that does help them make the podium is having a better body image, just being more comfortable in their own skin
Mhm.
and feeling confident in their body, knowing what their body can do and knowing that they did all the right things to fuel their body for that competition and that they know that they're going to perform to the best of their abilities. I think that's more so,
Mhm.
more impactful than focusing in on losing a couple pounds.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I want, that's what I wanted to make you say with my question, basically get that out there because yeah, for sure. That's what I would say to the athletes I coach too. If they, sometimes the athletes will come to you and be like, coach, like, I feel like I need to lose weight. And it's like, well, look, do, do the training, do the work, and your body will come to the equilibrium it needs to come to. it's your body's gonna, do what it's gonna do. Like it's not, as you say, it's a byproduct. It's not the end goal. And certainly if you say like I'm gonna try to lose whatever pounds, that's not the goal. Your goal is to run fast, not lose weight. And if you try to run fast, you might lose weight, maybe. But if you run fast, then it doesn't matter what you weigh, right? So yeah.
And you mentioned this like equilibrium, like there, like
Hmm.
what somebody performs at optimally is going to be different than another athlete.
Hmm.
And so finding out where they're feeling the most comfortable, where again they're
Hmm.
fueling their body, they have that energy needed to perform well and to recover from training, so that they can have a long career.
Hmm.
Winning one Olympic gold medal, that's fantastic. But if you've completely ruined your body
Hmm.
as a result of this, and you have persistent injuries, and you're having trouble just living your life outside of athletics after that, and it's been
Hmm.
a really short career, and now you have the next 50 years of your life in, with a blown out ACL or with back issues like I have. I have three
Yeah.
herniated discs and I had surgery on my back at 18. It's like that's
Oh,
not the career and the life that we want to have our athletes to have. So
yeah,
yeah, it's people are going to perform at different at different places, and
for
that's okay.
sure.
Let's find out where you perform best and where you're the most comfortable performing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like unidirectional. It's not like
Mhm.
lighter is better. When I was in university, I found that there was a certain weight that if I went under it, I would actually get sick. So it was almost like trying to make sure, because when you train a lot too, like sometimes that's another issue that athletes might have, is like getting enough fuel and maintaining a healthy weight so that they don't, like I did, get sick. So it's not, yeah, I think sometimes we have this idea, like, these norms of like, for certain sports, skinny is better, for other sports, bigger is better, but it's really about the equilibrium. Um, I mean, I don't know if you uh can answer this one, but have you thought about, like, just in track and field and the different events, the different concerns? We kind of covered this a bit, but just between sprinting, distance runners, jumpers, and throwers, like what are some of the maybe different body image issues that would come up in those events?
Yeah, it is very sport specific and position specific in certain sports as well. Like the
Mhm.
body of a goaltender, for example, is going to be different than potentially the body of a defender,
Mhm.
or a shot putter is going to be
Mhm.
different than a high jump
Mhm.
athlete. When I was in high school, I did javelin, discus,
Mhm.
and high jump, and
Nice.
I found it was very difficult to kind of meet those different
Mhm.
training goals and training ideals. And I was somebody who
Mhm.
really my focus was not on in the right spot. And so
Mhm.
it is difficult. I think that being a coach, you're aware of what bodies are kind of being presented within your sport and kind of the
Mhm.
pressures that these individuals are facing. For, high jump athletes, you got to, the idea is you got to be tall and thin, but you got to be
Mhm.
explosive. And so there might be pressure that this individual is feeling to lose a lot of weight in order to be lighter so that they can explode upwards and they're not carrying as much weight over
Mhm.
the bar. And that now from doing these body image programs, you're aware of how that can be really harmful. And again, I understanding where disordered eating kind of starts to play a role in finding out really where athletes are comfortable is can be your goal, and you can navigate that. Same thing with like shot put. There was a nice, really good documentary. I believe it was with NFL athletes, and it talked about the disordered eating that the linesmen had, but it wasn't about
Mhm.
losing weight. It was about constantly binging and needing
Mhm.
to be as heavy as possible, and that could be a pressure
Mhm.
that shot put athletes have to be heavier, to be able to put a lot of weight behind your throw. And again, we know about the body image ideals that are being presented within society about being thin and being muscular. And so now we're might be encouraging an athlete to pack on weight in order to throw better in this mind. And it's
Mhm.
moving them away from this ideal that they are being bombarded with in society. And so now there's
Mhm.
differences and concerns that are arising from that.
Mhm.
And so each sport is going to be unique, and you as coaches, as experts within that world, have an understanding of what bodies are being presented in the media and what the kind of messaging is going to
Mhm.
be within on social media and within the world. And I think your job as a coach is to make sure that athletes are again comfortable in their skin and try as hard as possible to resist that messaging, to just go out there and train and do the right things to to be a better athlete, not to fit a certain body type or to achieve a certain weight. But it is very difficult and it's different across all sports.
Mhm. So, what would you say are, let's say, two, maybe three concrete changes coaches can make right away to create a more body positive environment in their training groups?
The first thing I would say is it's what everyone here is already doing, which is understanding more about what body image is, because when you understand what body image actually is versus what
Mhm.
we maybe think it is, you're able to kind of monitor your environment a little bit better and to make more informed judgment calls about how you're going to approach this issue within your sport and within your sport setting. And that's going to be unique to you and to your environment. So doing that is the first thing. In our course at the very end, we have those additional resources. Very much encourage you all to utilize those
Mhm.
resources, and you have resources for your athletes as well. I would also have conversations with other coaches about this issue. I know that it can be a sensitive topic, and some coaches are a little bit more old school than others, and you might face a little bit of resistance. But I think that those
Mhm.
conversations need to be had so that everyone's kind of on the same page, and people, and it's not just you as the maybe the head coach or the assistant coach or the coach of the runners versus the shot putters or throwers. It's
Mhm.
everyone's kind of on the same page in terms of what is appropriate in this environment.
Mhm.
And athletes are also on that same page too about what language is appropriate and what's not appropriate within that environment.
Mhm.
So stopping the body talk, the weight talk, and
Mhm.
appearance equals performance talk is the first step. And you can't do that if you're not knowledgeable on body image. The other thing that I would kind of recommend is, I mean, we have some mixed reports about whether or not anthropometric measurements are very common within sports. Some
Mhm.
athletes, I've had Olympic level athletes say, yeah, I had to weigh in every single week, even though I'm playing hockey, or I'm
Mhm.
fencing and there's no weight
Mhm.
class, but I had to weigh in front of my teammates every single week. Remove that. Like remove
Mhm.
these anthropometric measurements. They're really not needed. Um, if you're like coaching kids, your goal is to make
Mhm.
sure that they have a positive experience in sports. You don't need to be weighing them for that
Yeah.
goal to
Yeah.
achieve that
Well,
goal.
this is something that appears like if you look at university rosters, very often they show these things and it's like, why? Like it's
Yeah.
not like I mean, I don't know, even the pros, like I guess it's interesting for the pros and stuff, or maybe for university, it's like if you want to get drafted, it's good to show whatever. But like
Mhm.
it's yeah, it doesn't seem super relevant to know like the height and weight.
No, it's really weird. My partner played volleyball, and that was always there was athletes' heights and their weight,
Mhm.
and it's so funny because in volleyball, everybody's lying about their height. Nobody want
Yeah.
even the libs who are
Yeah.
liberos who
Yeah.
are
Short.
the shortest on the
Yeah.
team. They're still lying about their height, trying to get a couple of extra inches. And actually, when I went to Brock, I believe for the women's team, they completely removed weight from
Mhm.
that little card that they got at the beginning of the games, which I was extremely proud to see. So I
Mhm.
think stuff like that should not be posted. Again, there's no reason for it.
Mhm.
So if any of those kind of anthropometric measurements, height and weight, people can use that as potential predictors of for themselves. They'll look at that and say, "Oh, I need to lose weight," and that's not healthy. And
Mhm.
so, especially posting it publicly is definitely a no.
Yeah.
Some higher level coaches will do things like bod pods and do body fat percentage measurements, and that's fine for you to utilize as a coach alongside a exercise physiologist or a personal trainer or something like that. But it's not
Mhm.
necessarily something that your athlete needs to know, and it's definitely
Yeah.
not something that you need to be posting on your website. So.
Mhm.
I mean, these
Right.
things are really just small, basic things, and I think that as long as you are having positive conversations around performance and the body and fueling yourself and listening to your body,
Mhm.
then I think that you'll have a better environment overall. There's other things that, of course, I would love for coaches to do, which is reach out to their provincial sport organizations to talk about, wanting to support these types of programs, all of these programs on body image, and just making them known. To coaches
Mhm.
is another big thing because
Yeah.
you can change your own sport environment, but then at some point your athlete's going to potentially move on to another coach, go to university, like you said, and
Mhm.
if the attitude within that sport environment, within that sport in general, is negative, then as
Mhm.
you did your best with that athlete, but they're still
Mhm.
facing those pressures outside of it. So changing the sport
Mhm.
and how you view body image as a whole is kind of the end goal. So even
Yeah.
just making your voice known that this is not an appropriate place for that, that we need to change
Mhm.
that language and provide further education for people is always great.
Cool. Okay, thanks. That's great. So I have one more question, which is not really a content question, but someone already clicked the link to the form and they're filling it out and they have a question about the form.
Yes.
The question is, I coach two different teams. One is mixed U9 hockey and the other is university development rowing. I wouldn't consider one more primary than the other. The form only allows me to select one age group, level, and sport. Which would make the most sense?
Oh, that's tough. Is there an other option? Typically, with a lot of these questions, we have the other option, and you can put in there that I coach two teams, both are my primary
Ah,
teams, and these are the age groups. And then we figure out later on the back end ways that we can code that in a way that makes sense. So it is,
okay.
if that's possible, any point in time, you can put that into your questionnaire, and I'll be able to.
Anytime there's a little like text box, just type that in.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll be able to sort that out as well.
Okay.
But that is always
Yeah.
important information to
Yeah.
know as well, because when you talk about the feedback for the program, I'm going to be
Hmm.
looking at it within the context of the sport that you're
Hmm. Yeah.
saying is your primary sport, and so
Hmm.
that is important information for me to know. So
Yeah.
definitely include that.
Yeah, and I think it's it's pretty common I think for coaches to coach lots of different things.
Hmm.
So it's good to, and sometimes and this is a good example, like the way that you coach 9-year-old or 7, 8-year-olds in hockey is not the way you coach university rowers. Like
Yeah,
it's two different demographics. You're talking
yeah.
different, and I mean it's different sports, but just the whole pro. So yeah, it's be good to know kind of like different strategies for approaching those two different kids. So it's good to have that data. Anyway, that was the last question about the forum, but it's good. I'm glad that people are clicking on it and they're going to it. Thank you so much for this. The whole, process with you has been great. Your enthusiasm for this topic is so clear, and I'm excited for this to be kind of go to the next level where it's going to be, I guess in the locker or wherever it's going to be, public for everybody to be able to get their hands on and learn. So,
Mhm.
really really happy to have you here to share, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I'm really excited to finish the pilot study and to really
Mhm.
implement all these changes, because it's just been such amazing feedback that we've gotten, and I think that we can again really improve upon what we've done to really help help
Mhm.
coaches learn about this topic and apply it to
Mhm.
their sports, and just to make sports a bit better, a bit safer, more positive is always a good
Mhm.
thing. So yeah, and I appreciate you very much for all the support that you've given to the project, Athletics Canada, supporting our research. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the last point I'll make is that, and I'll just throw this in the chat here. We are on a roll with webinars. We're going again next week, next Thursday, with Nicole Clark and Christine Deacon, two of our AC staff, actually, to talk about team management. So if you're interested in that, you can click on the link in the chat there, and it's on our website and everything like that too. So yeah, back next Thursday for another webinar. So yeah, thank you again, David. Really appreciate it. And yeah, have a good one, everybody.
Thanks. Have a great night.